Hey, Brian, thanks for the time. I
Of course.
have a weird performer question for you. So,
All right.
watched a lot of your games over the weekend. Both, I think I watched more round one than round two, but that makes sense because there are less games, right? You did more round one games, right?
Yeah, 4 in round 1, 2 in round 2.
Okay, so are you a
So
little?
the math's in your favor.
Thank you. Are you a little hoarse from the 6 games?
Yeah, a little bit. It's more just the travel and you do all those games, especially the 4 games in one day. So you're on the air 12 hours basically. The air's in the balloon. But then you're traveling and you're waking up early and there's no sleep and you're bouncing back and forth. So it's more from just not really using the instrument in the last 2 days. So I finished Saturday. So Sunday, Monday, Sunday I didn't really talk much. Then you just got to warm it back up again. So I'm probably not in my best voice today for you, unfortunately, but
No,
we'll breathe it out. We got some hot tea. We'll get it going.
You are. And so here's the question that I have. If I'm going to make this about me, but it's really about you. If I have like a TV show coming up where I have to shoot for 2 or 3 days, or I have to do, like I did a comedy special, and the day or two leading up to it, I'm always battling myself with, oh my God, am I getting sick? Even though I'm not getting sick, I'm always like, I start to have these minor mental breakdowns. And I wonder because, again, when it comes to, if I'm like tearing people, guys and women that do what you do, like to me, you're the best. Do you start to do that mentally, or am I the only extremely neurotic person before a performance that thinks I'm getting sick every single time?
No, we all go through that, and I don't think about it too much until it happens every year, everywhere we go. Whether I'm going into, say, the baseball playoffs, which is a long stretch, and you're doing games every day, or the NBA playoffs when you're going to be traveling and for 6 weeks. Somebody always says, like, what happens if you get sick? And see, that's really not an option.
Right.
So it's not like you could just call in sick, I mean, it's happened occasionally in our industry. Fortunately, I've only lost my voice once, and it was I had bad allergies, and it was at a golf tournament. So it kind of worked out in my favor because I was able to get really quiet like this. But no, I think, that paranoia exists with all of us, but adrenaline's an amazing thing. And, I was just talking to a young announcer who I've mentored. He's the voice of the Spurs, and this is his first year in the NBA. His name's Jacob Toby, and he texted me, he goes, man, I'm getting sick. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm on the road. I've got games. I said, hey, trust the adrenaline will be there when that tally light goes on, when that countdown comes in your ear and you're live. It is an amazing thing. And then, like, getting back to more mechanical stuff, I read a book 30 years ago. It's $12 on Amazon. It's that thick. It's the best thing I ever read. It's called Change Your Voice, Change Your Life. Written by a guy by the name of Morty Cooper, Dr. Morton Cooper. And that book, I use those principles to this day. A lot of breathing, sitting up straight, making sure you're in the mask. So, though I tune that all the time, even when I hit the cough button in the middle of games, or I was getting a little ragged in like the 4th game of the day on Thursday. So you just breathe and tune up that voice, get it in the mask, and then usually you can get it back. So it's been one of the most helpful tools I've had in my career. And it literally did exactly what the title said. It changed my life because I did not have a strong voice when I started in this business.
I think you give better advice than I do, because anybody that I'm doing that with, I'll go to a Minute Clinic and get a steroid shot. So that's probably better.
Never do that. That's the worst thing to do.
I know, but it makes you. But for like a night, because I feel like I have bad allergies too, and I'll lose my voice, and I'll go, Minute Clinic it is. And I'm like, nope. I'm feeling great at night, but the next day I'm terrible.
Don't do it. You're going to lose it, man. You're going to lose it. You can't. It's just like steroids. You're going to be like Lyle Alzado with your voice. You can't do that.
But he was great for a while, Brian, wasn't he? He was great for a while.
Oh, man, he was on top of his game.
Yes, he was.
These are your earning years. You got to go take the needle.
I do want, and I don't want to go through every game that you called, but I do just generally want to talk about some of the games, but then some of what you do while you do these games. But the Creighton Louisville game, and Creighton now rest in peace. But that was a heck of a game, and I don't really think a game that a lot of people saw falling that way. How did you feel going into that game?
Did you say Creighton Louisville or
Creighton Louisville.
Creighton Auburn?
Yeah, Creighton Louisville.
Yeah, Creighton Louisville. Yeah, that was, we thought that was going to be the best game. And it was the first game we did. So you look at the schedule and it just kind of falls in our crew's window through the years, especially probably the last 5 years. We seem to be the one that starts the whole full field tournament because we're the Thursday, Saturday crew typically, and we're usually on CBS. So they put us a really good game there to call, and Creighton just was. I mean, they just picked apart Louisville in every way. I mean, Creighton just probably had their best game of the year. They had come off the Big East tournament, and they play very similar to an NBA style. So it's obviously something I see all the time and am comfortable with. And it's there's a lot of ball and body movement, and they were clinical in their performance that game. They did not have that kind of performance against Auburn. They ran up to a lot better athletes, and they really couldn't do what they wanted to do against Auburn in the second round. But yeah, that first game, it was a great game for us to get started. It ended up being a little bit lopsided. Creighton ran away with it. We really didn't have any magical games. We called 6 games. 5 of them were essentially no contest in the last 5 minutes, and then there was one decent game. But yeah, we didn't have that one shining moment this year. But that was probably the closest game we had, with a little flow and great energy in the building. Louisville traveled well. As you know, it's an easy drive over there to Lexington. So the place was packed right away. That helps. Believe it or not, everybody thinks the NCAA tournament's this massive event, and it is, but there are days and there are locations where the day when you're doing all 4 games, some of those games, there's just nobody there. It may be half full or a third full. And those are rough, especially if you're getting teams that the local fan base is not interested in. But we knew Lexington would be a hotbed, and it was, and they really showed well. And I think they averaged 16,000 for the weekend or for the whole week. So that helps a lot too.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, as part of that game, my question was going to be with Louisville just having to drive down the road to Lexington, how quickly did they shut the crowd up? Like, when was that not part of the environment anymore?
Yeah, that was a big part of our story, and we did this kind of graphically, or at least from a statistical perspective. Every time Louisville got up and got their crowd going in what we call a hot timeout, where an opposing coach, sensing the momentum's rolling a certain way, will call a timeout. There were 3 of those occasions, and on each occasion, Creighton had an answer. They had an 8-0 run. I think they had an 11-2 run, and then a kind of a modest 7-2 run where they came right out, bang, bang, 2 3-pointers right away. Every time that crowd was cooking, Creighton had an answer. And I think that's what helped them win that game, is those specific timeouts to get into the weeds. Greg McDermott is a really great coach, and he sensed that the tidal wave was coming. And Creighton had some experience with that. They had played UConn in the Big East tournament at Madison Square Garden. That was a partisan crowd, big time, 90-10 probably. Then they won that game. Then they played St. John's in the Big East tournament title game in Madison Square Garden. So that's 90-10, St. John's favor. So I think they were kind of ready for that. Maybe they needed the crowd against them against Auburn. I mean, it was a good Auburn crowd, but it wasn't like 2 days prior when Louisville was the opponent.
So I'm a big Arkansas guy, but I love Auburn because I love Coach Pearl. We've spent some time with Coach Pearl. Johni Broome, like that dude, good kid, like has stayed, and anybody staying and playing, like, I respect. You had 2 Auburn games. Do you feel like Auburn has the talent to win it all?
Yeah, absolutely. They've got they just can beat you anyway, is what I like about them. They can play fast, score in the 80s, even 90s, or they can play slow. And if their opponent is that kind of team, they can grind it down and beat you in the 60s because they do have size. I thought Dylan Cardwell was a huge piece to that puzzle. Janai Broome to me didn't look like the SEC Player of the Year and a National Player of the Year finalist. He didn't play that way. He didn't play with that kind of energy. Not saying he was bad. He wasn't dominant. He didn't own the space. But they have other guys that can and do. And I'm a huge fan of Bruce Pearl. He's got Milwaukee ties. Obviously, I live in Milwaukee, and that was one of his stops in the early going. And so I believe in what they do. They're great defensively. They have scoring around big men, and it's not just Janai Broome. Cardwell is a handful, and I thought Dylan Cardwell, the way he played against Kalkbrenner. So Ryan Kalkbrenner is one of the great players in the country, a 7-footer from Creighton. He's had this amazing career, and not that he took Kalkbrenner totally out, but he definitely changed the way Creighton had to play that game. And I think it affected Creighton a great deal, not having Kalkbrenner just dominate the post and dominate the rebounding. So I think they're more than capable to win a national championship, and they're deserving of the overall number 1 seed.
I only hate teams I respect. I only respect teams that I hate because the hate doesn't come unless there's a reason I hate them. In football, I hate Texas. In basketball, I hate Tennessee. I don't even really hate Duke because everybody hates Duke, and that's lame. But I hate Tennessee. And you called 2 Tennessee games, but Tennessee has Kentucky now, and Tennessee got beat twice by Kentucky this year.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming are you doing that game, by the way? Do you know what games you're doing next?
No. Yeah, I'm not. I'm in the East region, so I have BYU, Alabama, Arizona, and Duke. That's our next stop. Thursday on CBS. It'll be Thursday, Saturday, my crew.
Talk about Tennessee for a second, because I hate them because they are so good. They are so tenacious.
Yeah.
What makes me hate them so much?
Well, they just get after you, and they're really physical, and they play great defense, and they make your team, if they're playing your team, they make your team look disheveled and unorganized. And it's like a strikeout pitcher makes a lineup look like they're not paying attention. But that's what they do, because they're just they're relentless defensively. I mean, they've got 2, really 3, but they've got 2 guys in the Final Four for Defensive Player of the Year, Meshack and Ziegler. That's an incredible accomplishment to have 2 of the 4, like 2 guys on the same team. You may get 1 guy in a conference, but they have 2 on the same team and on the perimeter as well. And then, they've got Akpara down in the paint, and he's a weapon, kind of a shot blocker, roamer. So it's hard enough to get by their guards. If you do get by their guards, you're kind of running into this second wall. They have a lot of size. They certainly have the perimeter defense, and then they've got the one weapon that most teams don't have, and that is just a lights out A+ shooter. And the college game is kind of lacking great shooters. That's our biggest, when we come down from the NBA to do these college games, it's the thing you notice the most. It's like you can just tell there's not enough skill shooting the basketball. And they've got it. Chaz Lanier is, I don't see anybody like him in the college game. He's got a quick release. He can dribble himself open. He's catch and shoot. He's kind of got all these weapons. So you've got all these, really good pieces. And I would say Tennessee is challenged offensively. I think they have holes offensively, but every team tries to shut off the Chaz Lanier valve, and they can't. And that's just, UCLA tried to do it. They had great success against Utah State, cutting off their best player, Ian Martinez, but he got his. I think he went for 20+, and I think he had maybe 50 points in the 2 games. And, he probably shot 50% from 3, and he was heavily guarded in all of that. So that's why Tennessee is to me, their defense and their perimeter play, it usually comes down to point guard play or guard play and shooting. And that's why to me, they're like a scary number two, if you could say that. They could win it all this year. They've never been to the Final Four as a program. So this would be their best opportunity, in my opinion. And I've had them a lot through the years in the Rick Barnes era at the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, they're so legit. I hate them. They're so legit. Alabama, I do like.
How many times we got to hear Rocky Top? That's the thing.
I know. I agree.
Man.
Especially,
I must have heard it 10 times. And
you ever been to Neyland Stadium? If you go to a football game, that stays in your head longer than Chumbawamba tub thumping does. If you hear that, like that's. So let's go to Alabama for a second. Since you're going to call that game, I really like Nate Oates. You get to hear things that we don't, being right there on the floor. Does he ever like get onto a player for shooting something that's not actually right under the basket or a 3-pointer? Is he like, no mid-range? Is that ever a conversation you hear?
Yeah, well, that's a philosophy for sure. And Nate's a good pal. And, he from where I'm sitting right now, he grew up literally 10 miles from here in Waterford, Wisconsin. So he's a proud cheeser, and that's what I love about him. Big Brewers fan. I still do the Brewers. So we talk all things cheese. He's had an amazing career from the high school level to, then he was an assistant, then he got the head coaching job at Buffalo. He's out of the Hurley tree, both Dan and Bobby. And he believes in what is driving the game right now, and that's layups and threes. And so I would say, to answer your question, I think the mid-range does become more prevalent in these kind of games. So NCAA tournament or conference tournament, certainly NBA playoffs, the game changes quite a bit. Everybody wants threes and layups. That's ideal. That's the ideal way to score. That's your most efficient way to score, but sometimes defenses know that, and they're going to cut that off if they're skilled enough. And so the mid-range then becomes mid-range and free throws becomes a lot bigger than what you would see in like a regular season setup. So yes, Nate wants these guys shooting threes, let it fly. They have great rebounders, great size, it's not just about shooting and making threes. They just want shots on goal. They want the ball in the air, and they want more shot attempts because they believe in their rebounding. So to counter the volume shooting, you need great rebounding, offensive rebounding, and they have that. They've got bouncy guys who have length, and so that's why you kind of recruit and build your roster that way, and that's very much of an NBA way to build your roster, and players love playing that way, which is why Nate continues to get the top players in addition to the giant bag that they're getting to go to Alabama, but players are getting bags everywhere. So they want to play in that kind of system that's going to get them ready for the NBA. Every player in this tournament thinks they can play in the NBA. Very few can, but they all think they can. And when they're picking their colleges, they want to go somewhere that's going to kind of groom them up to go to the next level. So, he's got it working there. He had it working at Buffalo. I'm a big fan of his. I love the way he runs his team. They know he's in their corner, so he's kind of the modern day Tom Izzo, I would say, where what we see in the games, he loses his mind every now and then, but I think behind the scenes, his players know he's got their back, and he does. I mean, he's a good man, and I think I'm really happy for his success at Alabama.
Yeah, me too, sadly. I like him too, and it's hard. I'm such an Arkansas guy that it's hard for me to like anybody else. Okay, so I have 2 basketball questions and a baseball question.
Yeah, sure.
NBA-wise, I watched the Celtics set the record the other night for the most 3-pointers ever shot in a game, and I'm not going to be that guy, though, that, it sucks because all they're doing is shooting threes. I won't allow myself to be that guy, even though at times I feel that way. What can they do micro to change the game so that it is not just people chunking threes all game, because it's not the best viewing experience?
Great question. I don't think you can do anything. I don't think you should do anything. It just the regular season. This all resolves itself, by the way, in the playoffs. And even in the play-in tournament, which, I was kind of a skeptic of, but it actually turned out to be great. And We've done it for the last 2 years at TNT. So ended up being really interesting. But I think, again, back to my previous point, when the competition gets intense and it matters, then it's not just volume threes. You have to do something else because you're game planning, you're matching up series, change that. So what I would say is just enjoy the skill of the regular season and the competition level. Let's call it an 8. It's never really going to get to a 10. Then the playoffs start and you'll see what you want to see. So you endure the regular season and you can make a decision whether you want to, experience that as a viewer or going for the live audience perspective. But that's what it is. It's a long schedule. It's there's a lot of travel. And the way they're playing now is to kind of survive the regular season, and most teams are doing that. You can't play as hard as you do in the playoffs in the regular season. You're going to blow everybody out on your team. So that's why load management exists, which stinks, but it's here. And ultimately, when the playoffs stop mattering, load management and this 3-point evolution will stop mattering as much. But they don't. They do matter. And so just the game you want to see, just hang in there until April and May and maybe June if your favorite team lasts that long.
Okay, 2 questions. Now go back to college. Did the refs call the games differently in this tournament as opposed to how they've called them in conference the whole year?
Always, especially in round 1, because you've got 109 refs. So just think about it. Like if you're an SEC guy, so that's a totally different league, and it's called differently in the non-conference too. Officials wouldn't agree with me on that, and they'd probably be upset about that statement. But it's true. The group of officials that are getting hired in the SEC, that's a fairly regular group. They all kind of know each other. They know how the players play. So then you expand that group and you go into an NCAA tournament, and now you've got 100 game officials. You got 9 alternates in that first round. These guys get paid by the game, and the only way you advance as an official to the second round is based on your evaluation and your grade in your round 1 performance. So it's I wouldn't say it's selective enforcement. It's just tighter enforcement of the rules. Now, the veteran guys, the guys that have been around forever, the guys that have been to Final Fours, they know they're moving on. They're not even worried about that. But, Rick Barnes, that was like one of his major topics with us before his round 1 game against Wofford is that he said, man, our guys got to know this is not the SEC anymore. It's not the SEC tournament, and we've got to play without fouling. I thought the UCLA Tennessee game, both teams came out Big Ten, SEC. They play physical, handsy, and I think there were 8 whistles in the first 4 minutes of that game. I'm pretty sure. I think that's what I said on the air, but it just like we couldn't get the game started. But then it settled down and players adjust. So I think we make too much about the officials and the officiating. You just got to feel the game, and every veteran coach, most coaches know, have been through it, especially in round 1, and it starts to ease off as you get going. But man, these games are called so tight. You're getting a lot of new officials that are trying to advance and create more payday, so they're calling it by the book a lot more. So yes, the answer to your question is I think it is. I've done this for 14 years and I see it every year.
Final question. And again, assuming you're a big Brewers fan, I just want you to see I'm a massive Cubs fan. So I know, I knew you dry heave a little bit. Yeah, you Whip Craig Council, the whole thing, right? It is what it is. But here's what I'd like to say. I keep a list of and I guess through just geography being close, I follow the Brewers. I have my top 5 Brewers of all time, and I guess I wonder if you would agree with my top 5 list of Milwaukee Brewers. Would you like to hear them and disagree if you
please.
If you will?
Go ahead, fire away. I'd love to hear this.
At number 1 on my list is Robin Yount, shortstop and center fielder. The face of the
easy.
When I think of the Brewers, it's just Robin Yount. Would you agree with that at number 1?
It's a statue. It's a statue out there. Go ahead.
2-time MVP, by the way. Okay, next up, I have similar, almost, not as quite, but Paul Molitor. Like, I think he's at number
Yes.
2. He is the face that if you forget the face, if you have that disease where you can't remember faces of people, but you can only remember, like, he's the other. Paul Molitor is at number 2 on my
the
list.
Igniter.
Yes.
Also has his number retired. So
Hall
you're
of Fame.
2 for 2.
2 for 2.
No arguments.
Okay.
No arguments.
At number
you're
3,
doing well.
I'm going to go a little younger here, just a bit younger. I'm going to go Ryan Braun. Now, again, retired, 5 years ago? But I'm going to put Braun at 3.
Yeah.
Is that too? You feel like that's too high?
No, perfect. Perfectly placed.
Okay. Then I'm going Prince Fielder
Yep.
at 4. I'm going, what do you?
Yeah. I mean, can't argue with that. It was a small window, but yeah, Prince Fielder, that works for me. I'm good with that.
And then it's very recent bias because I can't go Raleigh Fingers. I don't remember Raleigh. I just saw videos of the mustache and I would watch old. But I'm putting Christian Yelich.
Yeah, I like that. I would probably put CC Sabathia in that list and he was only here 3 months, but the guy changed the whole organization.
What the crap?
He's going into the Hall of Fame. Yeah, he was an amazing. When the Brewers traded for him in 2008, they hadn't made the playoffs in 26 years, and he showed up. He pitched basically every 3 days. He's hitting bombs, throwing complete games. Beat the Cubs on the last day of the season. Threw a complete game that day.
You can't pick somebody for 3 months that was a player.
I know. It's hard. I know how you feel about it, and most people do. But I'm telling you, it changed the arc of the organization. And it still resonates today. And we're gonna do a documentary about it. I promise. There's the CC effect was real. It was like unlike anything I've ever seen in my life. And I know it was only 3 months, but man, it was as magical to 3 months as any trade acquisition has ever been.
I just don't know if he's messing with me or if he really feels this way. I'm going to be honest, everybody listening.
I totally feel that way.
I don't know.
I could not feel stronger about a guy. I'm not saying he's top 3, but he's on there somewhere. He's on a list because we talk about the 82 team here in Milwaukee quite a bit. And by the way, there's a fantastic documentary out called Just a Bit Outside. I don't have anything to do with it, but it is so good. And it's all about that 82 team. A lot of those guys that you weren't born yet that you can learn about. But I think it's out on like Roku or something pretty soon. Anyway, but other than that, 82 team, that 2008 team, and primarily with CC Sabathia, those are the guys that kind of made this organization.
Well, I'm into the interview. I'm a massive fan. I still don't believe the CC. I'm going to leave this not knowing if he's messing with me. But Brian, I'm just a massive fan. I think you're only in my mind. You're only second to Nance, and I hope it's okay that I say that because Jim to me has not only become like a buddy, but also is the greatest ever. I think it's Jim, and then it's you. You're the my CC Sabathia of voices, if I'm being honest.
I'm the short timer. Yeah,
but you've meant so much. You can follow.
I appreciate it. I feel the same about you, man. I'm a huge music fan, country music guy. So you've entertained me quite a bit through the years. So
I appreciate that.
Feeling is mutual.
B Anderson PXP on Instagram. I'm gonna go. I didn't even know he had Instagram. I'm gonna go follow him just to listen to him talk. Brian, thank you so much for the time. Hope you have a great next round, and I'll be watching, man. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Brian. You. Good being with you.